Hello, my friends. This is episode 243 of Stand Up, where every day I talk with the smartest people I can find about the most important issues facing you, your family, your community, and your planet. How to make life better, evolve, grow, learn, and maybe laugh a little bit. That's what we do every day on Stand Up. My guest today is comedian and lawyer JL Cauvin. I'm Pete Dominic. It's time to stand up with me right now. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the show. I hope you had a good weekend if you're listening to this on Monday, the 7th of December. Very happy to have you joining me anytime, whenever you listen. I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to my friend Therese, who has been one of my longest listeners, friends, and supporters in life. And with all of my work, she's turned on so many people to the show. She's helped out in so many ways. And this weekend, in just another way, by inviting me and the girls up to her bakery up in just outside Kingston, New York. We had a great time making cookies at Therese's Bakery. And by the way, it seems like all the best people are bakers or have their own baking businesses. Tom and Leslie with Noble Pies, noblepies.com. Of course, Therese, as well as Tina down in Texas. Great people, make great things. And we had a great time until when we were loading the cookies in the car. Julia dropped her phone into the drain in the street. Her phone went right down into like the sewer. And luckily it was only about 4 feet down there, and we were able to get a couple tools and fish it out. But I'm not going to lie, I lost my mind a little bit. That was insane. But good job, Julia. She did get it out after I cursed at her. And thank you to Therese as well as everybody else. It's such an amazing community of people who listen to the show. Join us this Thursday night, 8 p.m. I've got Michael Cohen from the Boston Globe, maybe other guests joining us as well. If you're a paid subscriber, I'd love to see you there. And you can always join the conversation on the Discord chat platform if you're a subscriber as well. Now, I want to start the show today. I always do some news at the top here with the way that Jake Tapper started his CNN show State of the Union yesterday. Here is his powerful opening right now.
Hello, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, where the state of our union is suffering. The United States is now in the worst stretch of the pandemic by far, between 2,000 and 3,000 deaths every single day.
God.
Setting horrible records in number of daily deaths, in hospitalizations, and in new cases. And we have not even started to see the Thanksgiving effect on the numbers yet, as hospitals begin to max out and run out of ICU beds. Medical workers are pleading for leaders to issue new mask mandates and stay-at-home orders. The surge in cases only adding to the economic nightmare, with job growth stalling and leaders now finally teasing a $900 billion stimulus package, months overdue, for millions who may go hungry for the holidays, compounded by a president who only comes out in front of the cameras to spread election lies and grievances, as he did last night at a rally in Georgia. Yet another potential super spreader event, spreading the virus and lies, riling up supporters by falsely claiming he won the state that he actually lost by nearly 12,000 votes, and attacking Georgia's top officials, Republicans, essentially calling on Governor Brian Kemp to overturn the will of the voters. As America waits for vaccines to roll out, the president said he's worked harder in the last 3 weeks than ever before, but that work is to overturn the Democratic election results, sadly, not to call on Americans to wear masks or observe public health measures. If only the president went after the virus the way he is going after democracy.
Yeah, he really unloaded him on him in that opening and at another point on his show, State of the Union on CNN. I think Jake Tapper has done a really good job during the Trump administration of holding his feet to the fire, speaking truth to power, fact-checking, but he's clearly become a very opinionated guy as well. I happen to agree with his opinion. I think he mostly sticks as much as possible to the facts, but there's no doubt that the way that he presents it is obviously critical of the president. I don't know. What do you think? All right. So we go from there to some of the other Sunday shows. I wanted to check in with Chief Advisor of Operation Warp Speed, Monsef Salawi. He was on Face the Nation on CBS, where the host Margaret Brennan asked him how long before we could see a vaccine have an impact at lowering infection.
Well, I think we may start to see some impact on the most susceptible people probably in the month of January and February. But on a population basis for for our lives to start getting back to normal, we're talking about April or May. And therefore, it's absolutely vital that everybody, take comfort in the fact that we have light at the end of the tunnel and find the energy in that to continue to wear our masks, distance, wash our hands, pay attention to what we're doing, to make sure that we are there by the spring to benefit from the vaccine.
Yeah. To make sure we are there living by spring so that we can benefit from it. We also found out that President Trump's lead vampire, disgraced mayor and human being and leaker of head oil, Rudy Giuliani, finally caught COVID after running all over this country trying to steal democracy. He finally got the Rona. Here is President Trump, who made a video message for all of his fans and followers about the news of Rudy catching the Rona.
So I just got the word, very tough news, that Rudy Giuliani has contracted the flujitsu. We're very upset about this. But he's tough, he's tough. He banged his cousin. That's a sort of
oh my God,
very tough person who can deal with this. Okay, we have confidence in the great Rudy, and you know how sometimes you'll, to camouflage yourself in the woods, they'll pee on them, so they'll put deer piss on them.
Oh my God!
We thought he might be protected because he urinated all over his own teeth. You see how yellow and powerful they are. So we thought that might protect him. Okay, it's called great science. But the coronavirus is a tough, nasty enemy. It can overcome Giuliani urine very strongly, apparently. We're learning new things. You're not learning new things, but we're learning new things.
Right.
And, I thought, he's so tough. Remember that press conference where the diarrhea was falling from his forehead, just dripping down his face? There's different levels of tough lawyers. Some just sweat when they work hard. You see the sweat. Some get bloodshot eyes and bloody noses. Those are the people doing cocaine. But Rudy Giuliani is such a tough lawyer and works so hard. He had feces dripping down his face. And that tells you how tough COVID is, okay? The urine on the teeth wasn't strong enough. The banging cousins wasn't strong enough. And even poop from his forehead wasn't. But I think he'll get over this. He'll fight through it. And he'll be back in court farting very soon. So we'll see what happens.
I had to break up this terrible news about the unchecked spread of this virus with a little comedy. A little more from JL Cauvin coming up, but check him out if you haven't already on Twitter. Check out all his videos. Follow him on YouTube. Listen to his podcast. Guy's so good. And here's some more details about Rudy Giuliani contracting COVID-19. The Arizona legislature apparently is going to be closed all week after at least 15 current or future Republican legislators may have been directly exposed to COVID-19 by meeting Rudy Giuliani. And George Conway, Kellyanne Conway's husband, of course, part of the Lincoln Project campaign, tweeted, "It would be ironic, indeed, if Rudy managed to put in quarantine the very state legislators he had been trying to persuade to vote for electors for Trump." And by the way, my question is, what about the other lawyers that are sitting next to and traveling with Rudy Giuliani that are on Trump's team? Don't they have to quarantine too? Jenna Ellis and whatever other batshit crazy sellout lawyers are teaming up with Dracula Giuliani? More than 50 people. Giuliani, by the way, is checked into Georgetown Medical Center in Washington, D.C., but I just read more than 50 people in Trump's orbit have contracted COVID-19, of course, including the president, his wife, and son. I love these two comedians, the Good Liars, at the Good Liars on Twitter. They were at the Trump rally in Georgia on Saturday night, and on the way in, they, while wearing masks, literally begged people to wear masks, got down on one knee at the end of this clip you'll hear, begged them to wear masks on the way in. Here it is.
You guys got masks? No?
No. Don't want one.
Why not?
Because I don't need it. Why? Do you need it?
Yeah, you should wear one because there's a global pandemic going on. Yeah.
Well, you got yours.
I got mine on. Yeah,
Good.
I'm trying to be safe.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
But you could infect somebody else and they could get sick.
Why don't you leave them alone?
Will you please wear one?
Excuse me?
Will you please wear a mask?
No.
Please.
Nope.
For the sake of other people, please wear one.
No.
Please, I'm begging you, please.
No, they're not going to wear one. Certainly not for the sake of other people. Don't tell me what to do. Wear one of those pussy masks. Sad. That was really sad. A lot of people at that rally unmasked. And you know that many of them are going to get sick because it happens everywhere. There are 25 days until the end of 2020. 45 days until the inauguration. Let's get just a little bit more news from the experts on COVID. Scott Gottlieb is former FDA chief under Trump, as a matter of fact, but I think he's been a straight shooter. I saw him at an Intelligence Squared debate years ago about regulating the FDA more. And he had this to say on Face the Nation when the host Margaret Brennan asked him, some experts have said, I think the CDC chief, that we could have 450,000 dead Americans total by February. Some analysis, by the way, think that we already gotten there, but they haven't counted right. Anyway, she said the CDC chief said 450,000 dead Americans by February. Here's Scott Gottlieb's response.
Well, look, I think we have a worsening situation around the country. Things are going to continue to get worse for the next 4 to 6 weeks. We're not likely to see a peak in the number of infections until about the end of December, maybe into January. And we're going to see a peak in the number of deaths and hospitalizations probably at some point in the middle of January. So as bad as things are right now, they're going to get a lot worse. I think by the end of the year, we'll be at probably about 300,000 deaths. And by the end of January, we could be pushing 400,000 deaths. We're going to see consistently probably 2,000 deaths a day. And as we get into January towards the peak, we're going to see over 3,000 deaths a day, unfortunately, and we maybe get close to 4,000 deaths a day. So this is going to get a lot worse before it starts to resolve. Right now, the statistic is that about 1.7% of diagnosed cases will succumb to the infection within 22 days. That has held pretty steady.
Him or
so
herself.
There's a grim future right now.
Good luck,
ahead of us for
everybody.
the next
I'd love to
6
hear
weeks.
what
People
you're
really
doing,
need
what
to
you're able to
protect
do, what your
themselves.
concerns are, how you are planning to handle the next 4 to 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. I mean, this COVID fatigue is a real thing. A lot of people giving up, and now is not the time, is what I think. But easy for me to say. I'm just here in my shed making the show every day and, hanging out with my family mostly. They don't necessarily follow the rules I do. They see more people than I do. So it's never easy. It's not easy almost for anybody, even if you're a single person, because then you don't have anybody to be around. So we're all struggling. We'll continue to struggle together. We'll continue to build this community together. We'll meet up on Thursday night and talk about it all and more. Let me, though, before I get to my guest, play a few more things for you. And, of course, the news dump coming up. Here is Dr. Birx. She was on Meet the Press. You'll hear the music from MSNBC's Velshi, who played this clip.
There isn't a state without increasing cases right now except Hawaii. So this is where we find ourselves, and we have to listen right now to what we know works, which is mass physical distancing, washing your hands, but not gathering. You cannot gather without mask in any indoor or close outdoor situation.
How are we doing following those rules? Is it all too late? Lots of questions, and I'll be talking to the best experts I can find in the next few days about this, on and off the record, to try to give you as much insight as I can get. And always want to hear from you as well. My email, standupwithpete@gmail.com. You can use that for anything you want. Now, the most important issue happening right now, I think, is the Georgia runoff election. And last night there were debates. However, it was supposed to be Kelly Loeffler versus Reverend Warnock and Jon Ossoff versus Senator David Perdue. But David Perdue didn't show up, and some people probably understand why, because the first debate they had before the election that became a runoff, it was quite a bloodbath. A clip went viral when Jon Ossoff smoked David Perdue for being a corrupt asshole. And here is David Perdue's thoughtful answer on what he will do if elected on racial injustice in this country.
Criminal justice reform is one of the urgent moral issues of our time. Our Constitution already guarantees equal protection under the law. But when Ahmaud Arbery is shot to death in broad daylight, in the street, on camera, in Glenn County, Georgia, and because he is a young black man, local authorities look the other way, that makes a mockery of equal protection under the law. And let me just be really candid about this. Growing up as a white man in Georgia, I have never known what it means to fear I could lose my life or face false accusation or miscarriage of justice just because of who I am. But I do know that that is a daily fear for black people across this country. And Congressman Lewis, when I worked for him, he taught me about the power of the people to fight for justice. And now it's time for all of us, we the people, to fight for justice. We can pass a new Civil Rights Act to advance criminal justice reform. We can establish national standards for the use of force. We can ensure true accountability for police brutality and for racial profiling. We can make equal justice under the law a reality in America by passing a new Civil Rights Act, but only if we vote. And I've been saying it all night because in some ways it's the most important message of the evening. Make a plan to vote with early voting beginning December 14th so we can secure equal justice for all.
All right, so Jon Ossoff took questions for 30 minutes from reporters because his opponent, Senator David Perdue, chose not to attend the debate. Who chooses not to attend the debate? I mean, how could you support someone like that? Senator Kelly Loeffler showed up to take on Reverend Raphael Warnock at their debate, and they standing next to each other. Here is what Reverend Raphael Warnock said to Senator Kelly Loeffler, who dumped $3 million of stock to protect her own wealth after a private Senate briefing on the coronavirus pandemic. And, of course, she's now refusing to support a ban on senators trading stocks. Here is Raphael Warnock's response to that.
Well, I mean, the senator can't explain why the people of Georgia should send her back to the Senate. And so she's continued to misrepresent my record. She's lied not only on me, but on Jesus. I mean, everybody's clear about what that passage is about in Matthew. You can't serve two masters. And she should have listened to the lesson. Maybe she wouldn't be so focused on herself. She'd be thinking about the people she's supposed to represent. I intend to center the concerns of the ordinary people that I've been running into all across this state, particularly in rural Georgia.
There you go. Senator Raphael Warnock at the debate last night. Just a little bit of both him and Jon Ossoff. And that is the most important issue facing the country and the planet, I think, the Senate runoff right there. The Democrats have to take control of the Senate if we want to get any important legislation passed, especially climate legislation. And as Jon Ossoff talked about, a new civil rights legislation. Not to mention just that they have the chairmanship on all of the committees. It will be such a massive deal if these Democrats are able to take both of those seats in Georgia. And here is something that's not a massive deal, and it's not important, and it's me just doing a fake angry rant that some people are taking seriously. But I do it every year around this time of year. I hate the inflatable lawn ornaments. I was taking a walk with the dog, and here's the video I made. All right, I'm out walking the dog. Say hi, Andy. And a lot of neighbors have inflatable lawn ornaments. There's some there, as a matter of fact. And it's a real problem. And I don't know who you people are across the country that think that they're pretty. They aren't. Nobody likes them, and nobody likes you, frankly, for doing it. I mean, it's insane that you think it's okay. They look horrible. They look horrible when they're filled up with air at night, and they look even worse when they're lying on your lawn like a goddamn used condom. That's what it looks like. It looks like or that a bunch of Christmas characters jumped out of airplanes and their parachutes didn't open, and they just went splatteroo on your lawn. It's terrible, and I will meet you anywhere you want and fight to the death. Cancel Christmas specifically for those who use inflatable lawn ornaments. You lazy fucks. There you go, a dispatch from the field by yours truly. It's my annual anti-inflatable rant, so I'll have to bring that up again. Take an official vote at the Zoom hangout on Thursday at 8 that I hope to see you at. All right, now it is time for the news dump. This is where I share several news stories, rapid fire style, that aren't COVID related or overtly political, but are probably undercover because everything is going to that. Here's your news dump for Monday, December 7th, 2020.
They call them dumps, big, massive dumps.
All right, as always, as I go through the news, as anybody goes through the news, as you read or listen or watch the news, remember, all of these things are exceptions to the rule. They're aberrations. That's why they're news. So don't get upset when I read from abcnews.com a report about a Texas man who was killed by a mountain lion, according to authorities. A federal trapper has been called in to help locate the animal. The man was 28 years old. He died after apparently he was attacked by a mountain lion. But you don't have to worry about this. This is a thing that rarely happens, and so let's not be concerned. Get out in nature, get your vitamin N, and send me your pictures. Speaking of nature, she was pissed this weekend. She brought over a foot of snow to parts of New England. The storm caused thousands of power outages and accidents across the region. I hope you and yours are okay and finding ways to have fun during the snowstorm if you're listening in those areas. Here's another news story. This is scary and depressing, but important nonetheless from ABC News again. Great Barrier Reef has deteriorated to critical level due to climate change. That's right. A Conversation report said 18 sites worldwide have a critical outlook status. The conversation status for Australia's Great Barrier Reef has declined from, quote, significant to concern to critical due to increasing impacts associated with climate change, according to a new report. Schools are confronting off-the-rails numbers of falling grades. Carolyn Thompson writing at the Associated Press, the first report cards of the new school year are arriving with a lot more Fs than usual. It's not just parents who are getting distressed. Folks, if your kids are older, like junior high or older, how come they're not cheating like my kids? You know, like just sharing all of the answers with their friends on the phones. Everybody is doing it. Nobody isn't doing that. How are you getting Fs? Come on. You sorry. All right. Also, MasterCard isn't letting the Pornhub allegations slide. I heard about this story in my conversation with JL Cauvin coming up, but the credit card company MasterCard in Canada is responding to claims from New York Times columnist Nicholas Kristof leveled these accusations against the adult website, citing its alleged revenge pornography, child abuse, and footage of women being asphyxiated. MasterCard is now investigating, according to Reuters. A Japanese space capsule bearing sample material from an asteroid, the Bounty, from a 6-year mission spanning billions of miles, made its triumphant return to Earth this weekend. Read more at npr.org. Japanese capsule containing bits of an asteroid returns to Earth. Oh, that's cool. Speaking of space, this year's winter solstice is going to come with a nice bonus for us Skywatchers. Jupiter and Saturn will be close, so close that they'll look like a double planet on December 21st, according to Fox Science. Wow, we haven't seen this since the Middle Ages, which means we haven't seen this at all. Other people that were living during the Middle Ages did, apparently. And Zoom Santas are cashing in. I should have thought of this. Some big companies such as Macy's and Sam's Club also, though, using Santa visits to increase foot traffic to the stores and normal holidays. They are now using digital platforms. For the first time in 160 years, folks, Santa is not at Macy's Herald Square in New York City, a location that attracts more than 250,000 people to its Santaland experience each holiday season. Also, Sam's Club offering free chat sessions with Santa for paying members, and you can do the same thing at Macy's Santaland. Apparently, you can take selfies with Santa, but a lot of independent actors, performers, contractors, whatever, are just going on Zoom and charging per sessions as Santa and Mrs. Claus. I love that idea. All right, that's it. That is your news dump. My dad says this is his new favorite part of the show. He says, keep going, do them longer. No, I think that's enough, Pop. Thank you. Oh, wait a second. That gives me a good idea. I'm going to give my dad some news stories to read, and he can do the news dump with me. This is going to be good for tomorrow. All right. Now, let's get to my first and only guest today on a Monday. I had some other plans for an additional guest, but I had such a great and almost hour-long conversation with JL I just decided to post this. But I produce this show entirely myself every day. I book it, I host it, I edit it, and while it is free, it is not cheap. Thank you to all the new paying subscribers. If you have not signed up with a paid subscription, please do right now. It's as little as $5 or as much as whatever you want. People are very generous. You can always edit your pledge up to if you're really listening and appreciating the show and watching it develop and becoming a part of the community. So please support independent media. This is my daily attempt at informing, enlightening, and learning and growing with you. And I had a great conversation with JL Cauvin, who has had the best year of his career. 2020 has been in so many ways the worst year of many of our lives. And yet, for JL Cauvin, it's really gone pretty good, at least for his career, because nobody does a better, funnier Donald Trump impression than my friend JL. He does plenty of other impressions, most recently a very funny Dave Chappelle one. You hear a little bit of his Sherrod Brown during this conversation as well, the senator from Ohio. I love this guy, I love talking to him, and our conversation was all over the place, and I think he's super thoughtful. He really is. He's smart, he's funny, he's thoughtful, he's a great person to have on your podcast. You should listen to his podcast. That's right, he's got two of them. Follow him on Twitter at JL Cauvin. That's his website as well. Subscribe on YouTube and check him out. He's also a very generous subscriber here to this show and just gave a huge donation to GiveWell as well through givewell.org/standup. If you haven't donated yet, you ought to. And thank you very much for that, JL. Thank you very much for joining me on the show. Here's my conversation with the always hilarious, brilliant, and enlightening JL Cauvin. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest. I just told you all about him, and people love when he joins us. It's JL Cauvin, who is also a listener and subscriber, a supporter of this podcast, and you should return the support right back at him because he has two podcasts and a million other things, and I'm very happy to have you, and I love that you are still listening to this show. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a nice daily dose of some substantive enjoyable content, with a few exceptions, but I won't mention who those are.
I appreciate it. You know, I try to put as much content out there. So maybe you like this guest, but you don't like that guest. You like the news, but you don't love the guest. You like the guest, but not the news. I don't know. It gives people a lot more, because most podcasts are just, a couple times a week, one-on-one interviews. And I try to do a lot more content every day. What do you think of that approach?
I think it's a well done show, to be honest.
Yeah.
The one I do, if I were to make, I feel like as a friend and comedian and podcaster, I feel like I almost want to be sometimes the public editor of stand up.
Okay. Ombudsman me.
Yeah, but it's a small thing.
Good.
I would like to, when I click on the bio for the episode, when I get out of bed in the morning, I'm having my cup of black coffee and I'm scrolling through my morning podcast.
Sure.
It's always a 44 paragraph bio of each person instead of maybe letting me know what's on today's episode.
You would like to just have a couple lines in the bio to see who's on and who they are?
Right. Like, I don't need Ron Chernow's take on Eric Siegel and JL Cauvin. I just need, hey, he's this, and this. And, and then, hey, today we discussed Not that I'm not going to listen. I don't know. Maybe that's how I'm used to getting, it's just like,
no, that'd be easier that'd actually make my life easier to do that. Do you think it's important, at least for my show, to put the time codes of when the interviews begin so you can skip the things that you may or may not like? Does that matter? Starts at 15 minutes.
I don't want to say that, because I'm the type of person who I'm going to listen to the show. I'll listen. And if there's, on those rare occasions, even if it's a guest I like, let's say the conversation is not quite, I'm distracted, or I'm like, I'm not feeling this today, I'll just scroll through. But I feel like giving time codes, I don't want to sign off on that, because I feel like that's disrespect. Like, for instance, on this episode, everybody's going to, minute 39 to get past their least favorite comedian. So I don't want to give the say so, but yes, some people do that. Maybe that helps other people if they listen to podcasts way.
So nobody skips ahead by me continue to ask questions about this podcast and how to make it better. Let's get right to it. Last night, we'll pretend it was last night, that Rudy Giuliani, we found out, tested positive for COVID-19. And I was just thinking, This guy's traveling from Michigan to Georgia, from Georgia to Nevada. He's all over the place. He's never wearing a mask. And if there were any kind of karma or energy or God or righteousness, he'd get the COVID and not somebody else who's doing really good work. And there you go. He finally got it. What are your thoughts? Are you surprised that he contracted the COVID, that being so evil?
No, I would say, Rudy Giuliani is to COVID what that 1980s flight attendant was to AIDS.
What is that? What? Jeez.
Oh, there was and the band played on. Go rent it there was
I don't even know.
It was in the early 80s, like one of the major kind of, he wasn't patient zero. That's been debunked, but there was like a French flight attendant who was, the Wilt Chamberlain of the skies. And was, might have been an influential player.
He was spreading the virus. I never heard about that. But you're saying that is to Rudy.
Rudy is the COVID flight attendant, the gay COVID flight attendant.
Wow. What does this mean that he got COVID? I think there's some serious consequences because he is the leader of the clown car of lawyers, the last, handful of lawyers that are these type of celebrity lawyers that chase big stories to try to make millions of dollars. And he was the kind of the leader of that. Now he's going to be benched. So now you're just left with the even scrubbier of scrubs. Joe DeNova, Jenna Ellis, and
Jenna Ellis is really, she's going to have to step up here. I think it means, the sad thing is, I think this means nothing. I think Rudy Giuliani could die from COVID and it would have zero impact. That is such a scary, sad thought. But I genuinely think, other than being white, so he'll get mentioned one more time than Herman Cain, just as like a Caucasian bonus. But he will be then forgotten. Like they will be like America's mayor. We miss him. And then news will cover it because it'll be a big news story. But the Trump campaign will go, well, we loved Rudy. He was a very strong man, and he died doing what he loved, spreading COVID. So, they're not gonna care. They're just gonna bury it. I don't think Trump doesn't like anybody, so it's not like he'd be broken up if Rudy died.
No, I don't think anyone. Yeah,
it'd just be another thing that it's so weird to think nothing. Trump could die of COVID, and the cult is they're so dedicated to this new faith that they've found, these born again Trumpists, that that's it. It's faith without any sort of compromise or any kind of, me not being the super skeptic that some other people are, it's like this pure faith that they have. Like, facts do not alter anything. It's what Trump says, period.
If Trump died and the campaign said, listen, you're the best Trump impersonator in the country, we'll pay you $1 million to step in for him at this one rally, they'll believe you. Everybody believes it's him. Would you do it? $1 million.
But you're telling me, obviously, that I would be scripted. They would have to tell me what to say. Because if I could just get there and go, everybody wear a mask, I'd be a hero if I made $1 million and then said, everybody wear a mask, even you with the big tits. You look beautiful, but wear the mask. And we've got to socially distance. We're going to get the vaccine. Be nice to Sleepy Joe. I concede. Love you. Melania, we're getting divorced. Who wants to be my next wife? Like, if I could do that, of course I would. But I assume the hitch is that I have to go out there and go, have you seen Sleepy Joe? Have you seen him? He's a total sleep fest. Do you see him? We got to kill him, folks. We got to kill Sleepy Joe because he's tearing up our country. I'd have to say that for the bet to be right.
By the way, that's great. What do you make of that nickname and its effectiveness or lack of effectiveness, the whole Sleepy Joe thing? Because that was a pretty good idea for his evil nicknames list. They sometimes are effective and they stick. I think Low Energy Jeb was a good one. Little Marco, I think, was help. All the anti-women stuff is not hurt him. But Sleepy Joe, it seemed, I think it backfired because he wasn't really so sleepy. But your thoughts?
I think, for instance, Low Energy Jeb sounds like a bad nickname, but he deployed it very well.
Yeah.
And in one of the debates, when he said, "Very good, Jeb," a little more energy, like he was so condescending, he really weaponized it well. A very mundane
It's a hard
phrase.
one. I will give it to Jeb Bush. That's a hard one to come back from, even if I don't know that he'd heard it, before he was there live at the debates. But like, if you call me low energy, I would definitely be on my heels. I'd be like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? What does it mean?
Right.
I'm low
energy.
energy. What's he saying?
Trump, when Jeb kind of said, like, got up a little bit, Trump was able to dismiss like a good point by going, "Oh, good, your energy's up."
Yes.
Like he immediately belittles your good point. Sleepy Joe is so bad. It's so bad because there was never anything he could point to. I don't understand. Maybe he nixed this, but Slow Joe, I don't know why he didn't go with Slow Joe.
Oh, wow. I can't even believe
simple.
Yeah.
And that's what you're accusing him of, not of being sleepy. You're saying you can't have Slow Joe in the White House. It's a fast world and we can't have Slow Joe.
Oh, you're right.
He dresses nicely. I would have called him Sloppy Joe, but he wears some nice suits. But this is a fast world we're in. Okay. Xi is not going to wait for Slow Joe to negotiate. It's right there. It's right there. And maybe that proves he was losing a step because Sleepy Joe.
He workshopped them. There's a piece of paper with nicknames scratched out somewhere that's going to be in the Smithsonian someday. But let me ask you while we're on nicknames, the most horrible one, the most awful and racist one, of course, was Elizabeth Warren. And when he called her Pocahontas, it's so vile. But we don't care about Native Americans in this country almost at all. They are to be parodied and laughed at and in museums. Their rights are continuously trampled. They're no kind of special interest. They have very little power. That we can be so overtly racist. What would be the equivalent of that kind of racism against a black person or an Asian person, like some fictional or semi-fictional famous black person like Fat Albert or something? Like, I can't think of what would be equal to that. But just because we don't care about Native Americans in America and tribal peoples, he was able to do that and completely get away with it over and over. And it was effective, unfortunately.
If he called Kamala Harris Mammy Harris,
sure, it would be. I think that'd be equivalent. I think that'd be equivalent.
Sorry, he wouldn't be done. We would just be the same people would be more outraged.
Right.
That's all that would happen. But
probably.
I think the problem also is he chose, like on my podcast, I would say
which podcast is this?
Oh, Making Podcasts Great Again.
Where is that available?
Is Trump. iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Thank you.
Stitcher.
I would joke on the podcast and say, my nickname for Elizabeth Warren on the podcast would be Bores with Speeches. Because now you're really making it a more creative, like I'm actually using
stands with policy.
Yeah, right. Annoys with shrill voices.
Now that's just straight up sexist. Now that would just be sexist. Yeah.
Right. But in other words, Pocahontas, I feel like there was a Disney cartoon. There is a commercialization.
Right.
If he had called her Land O'Lakes Warren, I'd kind of be like, that's kind of funny.
That's different. That's a different characterization of a native woman. Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like, in other words, he took
a lot of words too.
He took a fairly commonplace in the pop culture name. And you're right. We don't really care. I'll be honest. I care. But when I heard him say it, my first thought was, oh, great, another crude nickname. But I didn't immediately kind of go, that's racist. And maybe that's what he was benefiting from, that I was like, I'm just dismissing it as another crude nickname and not,
Well, I care because one of my roommates in acting school is Merton Running Wolf, and then I spent the last 5 summers working with tribal youth. But anyway, I think
this has been virtue signaling.
This is virtuous. I'm sorry, I got to just take a pause.
Signals with Virtue. This is Signals with Virtue, starring Pete Dominic.
Hold on, got to take a moment just to virtual signal. So moving on past nicknames and past whatever.
By the way, I have a solitary tear streaming down my cheek right now for the listeners who can't see it.
That's so thoughtful of you. Speaking of tears streaming down face, I thought that you were going for a Giuliani joke there before I realized what you were doing.
Liquid feces pouring down cheeks.
Oh, how much more do we have to endure? I mean, the president was over the weekend. He went to Georgia and gave a speech, almost not mentioning the Senate candidates who debated last night, kind of. And it was mostly about him, and a lot of Republican strategists are saying it actually hurt more than it helped the candidacy or the possibility of these Republicans winning Georgia runoff on January 5th. It didn't help them, is what I'm trying to say, because he talked about himself the whole time, and he denigrated the election, which a lot of people are concerned is going to make Republican voters lose faith in the Georgia system, so why go vote? What did you think of that rally, not to mention the fact that with COVID spikes at record-setting levels, all those people not wearing masks, at least for the most part?
It's... The rally was gross because it's the issue I have with Trump. When you said how much more will we have to endure, as somebody who's crawled around inside his head pretty well and pretty accurately, I think, and I've said this, I think on this podcast and certainly on my own platforms, in 2016, I said Barack Obama was the perfect social media president, whether you liked his policies or not. This was a man of such composure, dignity, and steadiness that the whims of social media, the highs of 1 million retweets, and they were not going to affect him at all. I'm susceptible to that. I consider myself somewhat level-headed, but of course I'm susceptible to that, to the endorphins and the rushes of social media buzz. Obama is a deliberate, cool person. But we didn't have a control group. We didn't have, this is what a really calm president looks like. Here's what a normal president looks like. We didn't have that. We've swung right to, here's the worst human being possible. Insecure, instant gratification, praise, fame, clout. That you are looking at one of the worst people, forget entertainment or politics, just one of the worst personality types to thrive on social media is Donald Trump. So now when he's not president, he's going to need that fix. I think Joe Biden swings us back to the Barack Obama sort of, and partly because he's old also, no offense, Joe, but he's not going to be a guy who's, hey, look at what I got on Twitter. They're not going to care. Somebody will be running that for him. But Trump is going to need that fix because not only is he that type of person, he's been getting high, I'm convinced, off of Twitter. He's even commented, I post something and you see 80,000 likes. He has been getting literally high off of Twitter, in my opinion, and he is going to need that more because now you're taking away Air Force One, meetings with leaders, crowds everywhere, every move he makes on news. He's going to need Twitter and rallies so much more, and he is not going to let this country move on. He's not. Like, he's not going to allow it to happen.
I think one interesting thing,
and multiple networks will be on his dick. CNN, MSNBC will do the right thing. If Trump announces that he's, if Trump starts humping an SEC cheerleader on stage, they'll cut to it. But generally, they're going to ignore him. But OAN, Newsmax, and sometimes Fox are going to be giving him TV platforms as if he's still president.
One interesting thing I just read was that I only read the headline, but that Twitter would be considering banning him or suspending his account once he's no longer president, and why not?
That's awesome. But a coup for Parler.
I don't know anything about that, but I know it's not.
Well, it's
Twitter.
Parler. First of all, these dummies who started it, it's spelled Parler, which is parler in French, which means to speak. They call it Parler. I don't know if that's to own the French or if they just like to say the hard R in words, but very strange.
But it's not Twitter. I mean, it doesn't have the money behind it. It doesn't have the it's been a failure technically, I heard as well. And I love it that Mark Levin, one of the most influential right wing talkers in all of media, has been threatening to leave Facebook and Twitter for months. Just can't do it.
They'll never. Yeah, they won't do it. They're addicted too. They get money from it and they get the buzz.
Yep. But in terms of the effectiveness of him.
I quit Facebook in 2018. I'm a hero.
Did you? That's surprising to me.
Well, what's odd is that the election stuff was, and people say, oh, that's a big move as a comedian. I'm going, well, if you're a comedian with no backbone or values, I guess it's a big move.
You did it because of your values.
Well, it was the election stuff was really bothering me. And then even I am not Jewish.
What Facebook did wrong in 2016 is what you mean by the election stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
And what about Jewish?
Well, it was once I heard the story of how Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg were like when I think it was George Soros was speaking out against Facebook. Mm-hmm. And they like leaked some of those kind of conspiracy trope, like you help the Nazis kind of stories that right wing talking about. When I read that, I just said, "Oh my God! Like these people, they are as bad as can be." These are
George
bad
Soros, of
people.
course, is Jewish. These two people are Jewish, and they're tarnishing one of their own in the worst possible way.
Right, and I don't mean to say that they were doing exactly the same thing that you hear from the prominent right-wing people, but just even sort of trying to manipulate media or like tarnish him with some really shady shit or adjacent to it. I just thought, what am I doing on this site? Like, I was just like, they already are like bad news and their algorithms suck. But then I was like, well, now, I mean, they seem like bad people who I don't want to participate in. But
at this point, I do want to plug my Facebook group, the only one I have, and started the Facebook Garden Club. If you're into gardening, join the the stand-up Facebook Gardening Club, everybody.
Absolutely. I've realized one major point, and I didn't talk about this because there was actually, you asked me for stories before, and I didn't think to mention this, but I read an article by Nicholas Kristof today.
He's great.
About Pornhub. It was a large article on Pornhub and all the underage videos and rape videos that are hosted by Pornhub.
No.
And not to make it too dark, but I realized something. I was like, and I'm going to talk about this on my podcast, and this may sound funny. I've gotten mocked for paying for porn by friends who go and people on Twitter where they're like, you idiot. My reasons are very simple. I don't want to use porn. It makes it very limited. It keeps me to a very strict limit in terms of like, I try not to go to the free sites, but I also, in a weird way, as an artist, sort of go, they are doing work. Like, I know it's a weird thing to be like, I don't actually approve of porn, but I am human and they are doing work.
Well, no, I think actually you can approve of porn if you are paying for it. It's more ethical. It's more ethical. That's it. Yeah. There's a lot there, actually. I have a lot of follow-ups and questions, and I think that's a great point. Go ahead. Sorry.
And so what I realize is, though, like the times I've written, and I made it a joke, but I go, I pay for good comedy, good music, and porn. And people were like, you're an idiot. Like, it's a joke, but they're like, you're an idiot. It's free. And I go, first of all, like the Pornhub article totally validated my stance in terms of you're choosing your own convenience. And this is a sort of thing with our culture now in terms of convenience. And I thought porn was like a funny way of starting the conversation from my end. Uber, like restaurants are getting railroaded by all the delivery apps, but we all go, no, it's quick, easy, bop, bop, bop. Let me get my food.
Yeah.
Order directly from the restaurant. Like that's one of those things where it's like, you should be ordering directly from the restaurant whenever possible, especially if it's a mom and pop place, because they're getting railroaded by these big companies. The big companies know how addicted we are to convenience and apps. Same thing when I left Facebook. It runs through our whole culture now. When I left Facebook, I had friends and fans, not a lot of them, but legitimate fans who have seen me perform multiple times, who've bought my albums, friends who I've known from college or high school, wishing me well, like saying they'll miss me. And I'm like, I'm on another free social media site posting content that isn't quite as actively destroying our democracy. And they were like, yeah, I just don't like Twitter. And I was like, so you don't really like my comedy. You like being spoon-fed on your preferred platform, free content. That's not a good fan. It's not a crime to be a bad fan, but you start to think I have fans. Not if they won't move to another free store to follow your content. With porn, it's one of these things. People laugh at it. This Nicholas Kristof article, because there was a time in my life where I felt like I was watching. It was damaging to a relationship many years ago. I was watching a lot of porn, and I was dealing with my own issues. Mm-hmm. But it was like one of the ways to curtail that, because, and yes, we talk about how I'm Catholic. I'm human. I don't like to watch porn. I feel like porn is something mostly born out of trauma. Like they always say, not every sexually abused person goes into porn, but every person in porn has been abused.
Right.
And I think of that sometimes. Like I do. I'm like, this is like something born out of trauma. It's not normal.
I think generally speaking, that's true. But I do want to include in the conversation that a lot of people, not necessarily the case. I think it's also fair to say some people have, enough agency and they choose.
But when I say that, I'm quoting porn stars who've said that quote. That's not my own theory.
No, I mean, I think it's probably, there's a lot of truth.
No, and I know we're at this point where progressives have to always kind of do this. I'm not condemning human beings here, but I am saying that the industry seems to be supplied largely with entertainers who might be doing something else with their lives had things maybe not gone awry in certain areas. That may be an overgeneralization, but it's certainly not a minority case in that industry. But when I say pay for it, it's a way for me to discipline how much I watch, that it's only a rare occurrence for me, that if I'm feeling tempted or whatever. But it's also it is a respect for, and this is the comedian in me saying, your work. Whether I think it's the greatest life choice or not, it's a service, it's work.
Should get paid for
and I'm
work.
going to pay for it just like I want somebody to buy my material. But I brought up restaurants, comedy, social media, porn, because I think we are in this entire space now where the cell phone and the apps control all. It dictates the way we live. Cameo. As we were talking before we started recording, Cameo, perfect example. I have put on my Cameo profile, iPhone app charges you more and pays me less. As an example, if I charge hypothetically $100, which I'm not, I'm better than that. But if I charged $100, if you get it on any computer or any non-iPhone app, it's $100. I then get 75% of that, $75. If it's $100 and you go to the iPhone app, you pay $110. I get paid $57.
Oh, wow.
Because they get an upcharge and from the buyer, and then they get 30% off the top before me and Cameo do our split. So I tell people, don't use the iPhone app. People still use it. And I'm going, you could literally go to the web browser on your phone and save yourself $10 and pay me $18 more. But you're so plugged into, I just like hitting the 3 buttons and then bop, bop, bop. And it's like, we're in the apps and I like using apps. And why support a cab company and with cab companies with regulations when I can bop, bop, bop? I got an Uber. Cool. I'm tech. I'm futuristic because I'm doing all my swipes.
Well, convenient.
Of course.
Or so they think. It's not necessarily, but that's what you're led to believe.
And you saw what California did. California rejected treating Uber drivers like employees.
Yeah,
that's California. Yeah. And that tells you they are a liberal state. En masse, they go for mostly liberal policies, liberal politicians. And yet we are now at this point, and I say this is like some sort of thesis for a new project for me, but this idea of convenience, is this a good book title for some sort of like a left of center book publisher? Convenience is killing us.
I like it a lot. I like it.
But I'm serious, because we're all going, well, if the cab companies were blah, blah, blah. Well, yes. And one day you're going to get like,
I have an example of this.
Yep.
From my life that I'm horrified by, but I'm going to throw my daughter right under the bus. Because this is
this the one that interrupted us before? Or
no, I would. She's gone. I sent her away to a camp. No, my older daughter, Ava.
Whoa.
The other night, she texts us and goes, I just Uber Eats McDonald's fries. And I text her back, I go, is what you're telling me that you ordered just French fries from McDonald's to be delivered here by a person. She goes, that's what I'm telling you.
She has we've had this talk carbon footprint.
Exactly. We've had this talk before. It's mostly an issue for me about sustainability and how much energy you're wasting. Like I go, listen, this the easiest way to explain this is that we would never order delivery for one person, even if it was a meal. Right. Like we would not order one meal. We only order delivery if it's a whole pizza or a whole meal of several meals, because you're sending one person out to feed 4 people. You can't send one person out to feed one person. I mean, you can, and people do all the time. I'm saying our family we shouldn't do that. Yep. And if you are going to do, you can't order, as she's begged for many times, an acai bowl, a smoothie, a shake, whatever it is, one item.
I believe it's,
and that's
acai,
most people.
If I may, I believe it's acai bowl.
No, it's acai. Acai bowl.
I call it acai. I try to.
Oh, that's really disruptive. That's really offensive. I think you're going to get thrown right out of the place. So the point is, this generation doesn't understand, because there's so much convenience. It's so you can have whatever you want right now. McDonald's fries right now. No, ethically, no. I said
right. I stopped. I mean, this is once again. This is where I show off my. By the way,
we didn't let her eat for 2 days as a result. Do you think that's too harsh?
No, and she probably got hotter because of it. I think that, like, for instance, I stopped shopping on 2 years ago. I stopped shopping on Amazon also. And I genuinely think what happened for me was my career was so bad. And I genuinely think this happened to me psychologically. I was like, well, if I'm not going to achieve my dreams, maybe I can be a better person.
That's interesting.
And I started doing like an inventory of like things that would make me feel better as a person, since I wasn't feeling fulfilled as a professional. And I stopped using Amazon. I'm not saying I never use Amazon. I mean, I use Amazon for movies, to watch movies, because I don't feel like that's not their area
I'm watching
of dominance.
The Boys on Amazon right now.
The Boys. I love The Boys.
Let's not talk about it. Nobody knows about it. Go ahead. I mean, if they do, they don't care.
But I don't, I do almost no shopping on Amazon unless it's literally, I must, like, unless that is the option for the product.
Right.
And, when I order books, what I do is, as a little thing, I say, I'll do the pick up at store, pick up at store. That means nobody put it in a box. Nobody did an extra trip with it. And there are little things you can do that are like,
on Amazon, pick up at store?
No. Barnes and Noble.
Okay,
like, I don't shop on Amazon.
Books, you do Barnes and Noble, you do pick up at store, as opposed to you could do delivery.
Just figuring there's still several stores I can go to.
Like, I got something from Amazon. I ordered a new dustbuster. I don't want to brag. I'm doing well here. And it was in a box shaped like the box it was in. Are you following? It was like a Russian doll. Like, it was exactly. I'm like, wow, Amazon, to be efficient for them, they probably have boxes to save every square centimeter of cardboard that just fit, so you don't see what they could have sent it just in the dustbuster box.
Right.
Anyway, the point is, it's so much waste. And
yes. And I just think we are, for as woke and as environmentally enlightened in some ways, young people are, I think there is going to be this clash, once again, not to borrow from, I think it was Richard Hofstadter, a clash of convenience civilizations, because you're going to have people wanting to do righteous things for the environment while also being conditioned and trained to be like, I will not wear fur, but let me get this, like, my Uber Eats order and I need Amazon in 1 hour.
I think some issues, especially for young people, it's not always obvious what's the most sustainable solution to a thing, which it should be maybe, but it's not. We should teach it more. But I also think that there's no way, I think it's important, as you are doing, to kind of mine human psychology, but the only way to get to a more sustainable place, I think, sadly, is to make things, sustainable ideas, more efficient and cheaper. So solar panels really started taking off when they became more affordable and more efficient. And we've crossed that threshold now where they can compete. Solar can compete with natural gas and coal, and it's putting them out of business. And that's great. And it's efficient. And there's a lot to say about it. But unless you are going to make the most sustainable solution, also the most efficient and cheapest. I don't know how humans change their behavior, because even those that want to, quote, do the right thing, whether they know it or not, we're still, including myself, falling for efficiency, not schemes, not scams. They are more efficient. Amazon's more efficient. It's definitely not more sustainable, but they know what they're doing. They get you the product almost as, it's like the old Chinese delivery joke every comedian used to do. When you call up, like, hi, I want a ding dong. Oh, wow, they're already here.
Well, I have a joke. I have a sketch, I'm sorry, that I made 4 years ago called Amazon Now. I wish it would go viral. It was literally, it said, do a combination of brain sensors and the occult. We will deliver your item when you think of it. Right. And it was like, you see Jeff Bezos. I had an actor friend play Jeff Bezos, and he literally
did you not know me? I'm perfect for the role.
This guy had like the good eyebrows and stuff.
All right.
You'll see it, but it was, he, at one point just breaks the neck of a mailman and says, this is a redundancy no longer needed. So and then it becomes a thing where, like, people are thinking, I don't want this baby. And all of a sudden they have an Amazon abortion, like, before they can even consider it.
It's got very dark. Wow.
It gets dark, but it's really good. I swear. It's really, like, I think I get murdered at the end of the video.
Because you thought of something.
But I think Jeff Bezos kills me at the end of the video. Just it encapsulates what I feared Amazon would become and has become. But I think I forgot what I was going to. You were talking about
Amazon efficiency, sustainability, making things cheaper is the only way to get to sustainability.
But government action has to be part of that, because you can subsidize certain things.
Yeah.
And I know that Jersey,
you can subsidize anything.
I have been tempted to get my girlfriend an electric car for Christmas.
All right.
It's been a real good year. But
and your relationship as well, apparently. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, so an electric car, let's say $30,000. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I'm looking at a new one right now too.
Jersey gives really good tax subsidies. Yep. It's like $7,500 or something.
Yep.
But it used to be $7,500 at a federal level, and Trump cut that to like $2,500. Yep. And you're literally going, how can we have a country that is running on spite? Like, that's what's so funny. It's like, that's not even good policy. And like I said, the last time I was on here, when the Times ran that article about coal, and they said the biggest 4-year reduction in coal production in American history was Donald Trump's 4 years in office. So he can't even stop what the market is doing.
The best example is the CAFE standards that as soon as Biden won, the two bigs in America, at least GM, said, we're not going to, I'm not explaining it well, but basically the Obama administration comes up with these CAFE standards that cars manufacturers, by the way, as trade-off, this was smart, apparently, for the bailout money. We'll save Obama will save your automobile manufacturing company. In return, you have to make more responsible automobiles, more sustainable automobiles. They're like, okay. Trump comes in, obviously shits all over that, and makes it piecemeal so that every state has a different standard. GM can't make a car for every different state. It's not cost effective. So as soon as Biden wins, they say, we're not doing that anymore.
And that's an example of where California was a good thing. Their progressive values won out because they are such a large market by themselves. Right. They fucked it up just by saying, oh, we're going to do the strict standards. So now you can decide if you want the 40 million residents of California to buy your vehicles.
You know what incentivized people to think that way in California is that they would be driving down the highway, and on both sides of the road, it was a fucking hellscape of fire. That'll make you think twice about climate when you're constantly smelling fire.
But the problem is, I think, and unfortunately,
it doesn't work everywhere, however.
The sad thing is when it's like poor places getting flooded, or Democrat cities, so to speak, getting flooded or burning, that it becomes this like, well, I don't see it in my North Dakota or in my Idaho or in my part of Texas. So once it gets to you, it's the same thing I said about Susan Sarandon. once the problems get to you, it's too late for everyone. Susan Sarandon, you can wish for the progressive revolution that a Trump presidency would bear out. But there are many people who cannot wait those 4 years. There are people who can't wait 4 weeks under a Trump-like president. Right. The same thing with these states, these Republican states, where they're like, well, too bad for California. Hey, by the time Iowa is on fire, it's a wrap. Like, it's all over. So, like, this is a warning. But you saw with COVID, the thing that makes me so despondent, and I know you're an upbeat, you have kind of that like Tony Robbins minus the sexual assault kind of vibe to you sometimes with the positivity.
Thank you.
You like, to me, it's the fact that COVID, and I think Paul Krugman might have talked about this, but the fact that COVID was such a very obvious warning, a very obvious and deadly and imminent warning. You might die in 2 weeks if you don't mask up. That we couldn't take that challenge on united as a nation, and that literally Florida talked shit about New York for months and then got gangbanged by COVID months later when they had all the time to prepare, to adjust their lives. Yep. And they chose to spend months mocking instead of preparing. And then when the shit hit, they chose to go, hey, well, we'll see what happens. And that's unbelievable because that's actual death happening in real time. Now try convincing those people that flooding 50 years from now is a crisis they need to care about.
Really, really good point. And a lot of academics and policy experts, environmental experts and writers are talking just about that. The fact that you see COVID right in front of you, taking the lives of your loved ones, you're still not going to change your behavior. You're still not going to support policies that will change all of our behavior. How can we convince people that climate change is an existential threat if this isn't doing it? I think that's what you said, right? Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me it's very easy to be cynical, and go, oh, we're fucked. I mean that in a real way. I don't mean that in a whatever. I'm going to still try to do my part, vote for my people, live my life in somewhat of a healthy way. But I really do think when you have, we are the kid. We are the America in 2020 is the asshole kid who's like the grandson of a great man. And the money just passed down and the money and prestige passed down. But we're basically the douchebag club kid generation of America in American history, where it's like, you know who my grandfather is? We won World War II. We've got more bombs than you. Fuck off, bro. Park my car. Right. And we're that. And yes, there's plenty of people, a majority, I would say, of this country is not that. But the way our system runs, we don't need 51% to be good. We need 90% to be good, to really make proper changes and to lead the world in the way it needs to be led.
What about the system you think that we could change that would automatically make those percentages matter more? You're talking about electoral college, you're talking about Supreme Court?
No, I'm talking about putting a chemical in Mountain Dew and in bath salts that will sterilize various states in this country. Okay. So like when Florida is just chugging Red Bull and Mountain Dew, their sperm is dying, their eggs are dying. That's what we're at that level now.
So you would target You would target the compound V-like substance in just certain district, states, and communities to sterilize those people, and you think you'd catch some good people. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that it's the most sound or ethical policy that you're promoting.
As Oliver Wendell Holmes said so infamously, and I believe it was Buck v. Bell, how you like me now, Eric Siegel? I would say 3 generations of imbeciles is enough.
Was not seeing it go there, calling out another regular. Oh, I love it.
With respect. He was our order of the coif. I was, you're lucky you're graduating.
That's great. That's very good. Okay, so let me try to get back on track with a couple more. Wow, we've been talking for 40 minutes. You good?
Oh, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you. Sorry. I just, I always say I don't know what to talk about. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I did read that porn article that made me think about Amazon and Facebook.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up. I thought that was a very, very, all of that in terms of sustainability and efficiency and all. I think it's super important and something that is worthy of discussion and debate. It's human behavior. It's psychology. It's efficiency. It's convenience. It's consumerism. It's materialism. It's your status. It's your comfort level.
Our tech companies, and this is, I remember reading the John D. Rockefeller biography a few years ago by Ron Chernow. Another name check for Ron Chernow. It was, and I read it and I said, oh, we all think that evil corporate titans wear top hats and have monocles and have big factories and say, you over there, and we're buying you. The tech companies are the robber barons. They are the mega rich powers of industry. They are the titans of industry now. And to think that
Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook.
Yeah. And at that level, to think that they're going, the addiction of profit and power at that level is something we can't imagine. But I believe it has to take hold. Like I said, if I put a tweet up that gets 5,000 likes, I feel like the king of social media. If you're worth $5 billion or $20 billion and worlds change with your decisions and your products, there is no one alive, I don't think, who is able to withstand that. Totally.
Unless I'm misunderstanding you, I feel like you're way overestimating the salary it takes to get someone to compromise whatever values or integrity they have left. Because having worked in corporate media, I can tell you the threshold is $220,000.
No, I mean,
if I'm getting paid $220,000, I'm not going to rock the boat. I have a good life. I have a great life and insurance and a 401k. I'm not doing anything. Unless, again, if I were, let me virtue signal, unless you're someone like me who can't look in the mirror, can't sleep at night if they feel like they've done the wrong thing, and whose brother would disown him if he did that. Like, I have a conscience but I just don't think that most people do that. And sure, I look the other way. People do. I feel like your threshold is too high, and I think you should lower it to talk about most people. But I meant it
just for leadership. I was just referring to the leaders of those companies, obviously at much lower levels. You can walk around any bar or club in Manhattan, and you'll see hundreds of douchebags who are making a little bit of money. I would like to say that this year I'm obviously proving your theory incorrect, because I've had quite the year, and I think that's where my anger comes in, Pete. I think that is that keeps me grounded, searching for ways to be indignant.
Yeah, and I don't like that.
Outraged.
You might be right, but it's such a poisonous theory. It's like Artie Lang or so many other comedians being like, I have to stay a degenerate addict or else I won't have good material for people to relate to. It's like, well, you're gonna head into an early death or a miserable situation. And someone like you're more than talented and smart enough to continue being great and also, working on your anger. And then lastly,
I know. And I have been working on it, but just not this year, because I won't do Zoom therapy. No, I told my therapist, I'm like, I'm not doing Zoom or phone calls. I don't want to.
Why? What's the difference? I did it.
I don't like.
No, I didn't do it. Actually, I didn't do Zoom therapy, but I do it. I kind of do it. My therapist is one of my best friends now. My buddy David Campbell tells me the truth every day. It's awesome.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I sleep with my therapist. I just don't do the therapy sessions anymore. It's what I'm saying. So we still have a relationship.
Right.
That's ethical, right?
Well,
that's a joke. That's a joke, everybody. That's a joke.
Might be.
But what I was going to say is,
your girlfriend was a therapist?
With the social responsibility that the tech titans have, they are not going to exercise it. We do need somebody like an Elizabeth Warren to basically crack the whip and bring these fuckers to heel. And I don't say, me, I'm a culturally center guy. I'm not but the tech industry, whether it's pornography, whether it's social media, there is so much power and concentration there that slogans and the occasional good gesture will not get it done.
No.
They have such a grip on our lives and have such a power and responsibility that they will not or are not exercising.
You try to frame yourself as a moderate, and it made me think, or whatever you're trying to frame yourself as, and I was wondering, well, how do you look at the concentration of wealth and power? I think generally most people think that there shouldn't be a very fine, specific concentration of wealth and power within a few organizations, companies, or people. That's not extreme. That's not conservative. That's not liberal necessarily. It's just wrong. I also, by the way, have to take this conversation a little further. We've been hearing AOC talk about this, but obviously people have been talking about it for generations, that in this case, where we're at now with our economy, that extreme wealth is immoral. I mean, having one person have $1 billion is immoral. The idea that what she's saying is controversial is bizarre to me. Of course it's immoral. If you have people starving over here through no fault of their own, and someone over here has $1 billion, they're literally right next door, that's immoral. Of course it is. That doesn't make you a moderate. That makes you a Christian or a human or a secular humanist.
A Finnegan.
Of course a Finnegan would think that. At least the ones we know.
No, I just heard you say Christian. So no, I agree. And it's this.
Is that radical to think extreme wealth is immoral? It's not. It's, by the way, you know what else it isn't? Sustainable for nature. You can't do it. You can't continue.
I did like the fact that when I found out that John Rockefeller's wealth at his time, he was a double Bezos for his time.
Was he?
That's
really?
Impressive.
Yeah, that much more.
Like, imagine there was a guy walking around today who was double the wealth of Jeff Bezos.
In terms of per capita, in terms of having that much more than...
Right. He was worth $900 million when the average salary was a biscuit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was like, as a historical fact,
sure,
I find that amazing. Right. And he was obviously, and I don't know. I just, I agree. The economy as it is now is absurd. And I think people forget that certain things, take, for example, the fact that Amazon, when cyber business was a nascent industry, they allowed them to not have to pay sales tax for like a long time. And it became a Frankenstein. It became hey, I'll go to Amazon because it's cheaper because they're warehousing it and no tax. I'd be stupid not to buy my goods there.
Right.
And they let them run up the score until brick and mortar stores were like, hello, can we do something about this? Like, now that they're the biggest, can we finally curtail their advantage a little bit? They're no longer a startup. They are actually the MVP of the league. So I think now we could start to maybe tax them. And then, of course, Amazon lobbyists everywhere saying, we'll move our factories if you tax us. This is the one area, like, I know Elizabeth Warren would never get, I understand why Joe Biden wouldn't nominate her for multiple reasons. There's a Republican governor in Massachusetts, although I think they do a special election in Massachusetts. Yeah, he doesn't
want to lose that Senate seat, but yeah.
And they'd probably give her a hard time. Maybe she wouldn't get approved if they don't have the Senate. But that is tech, not in maybe the cynical way that like Trump hates it because he wants his tweets to get more likes. But tech needs to be brought to heel in a ground shaking way.
And like by brought to heel, it's either break them up as Elizabeth Warren wants, or heavily regulate them as I think a lot of
it. That is it. Because I think they are having, as we sort of went through, I think they are having a bad impact on our culture. They of course have value, but they are hurting us, I think, in equality, and they are hurting us in culture. And culture, the right wants to talk about culture when it's about saying Merry Christmas or Black Lives Matter. They think that's the culture war instead of nothing. But culture in terms of how we exist and how we interact with people and how we respect work and how we treat fellow people not as cogs and delivery devices, but as workers with dignity. Not to sound like Sherrod Brown, by the way, my Sherrod Brown impression.
Oh, very good.
His wife retweeted my impression during the Democratic National Convention. So that was fun.
Very good. Wow.
If only he had run. No offense, Joe Biden, I voted for you. But if Sherrod Brown were the incoming president,
yeah,
it's, you know.
Are you working on a Biden? You have a Biden? I haven't seen it.
I don't.
Is it hard?
It's difficult, not because his voice is so unique, but because it's not.
Right.
And it's got like a little weathered old man to it. But not like some Dana Carvey, like, hey, what do you say, Sonny?
Right.
It's like, just, I'm Joe Biden. I've lived a long life. I need a little bit of a nap. And
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with
that. There's nothing. No, I know. But there's nothing. It's difficult for me to get. Just like I can't impersonate everybody, of course. That's one that I can't really. So.
Well, we'll see about that. All right, I'll let you go, man. I really appreciate it. You're almost an hour of your time on a Sunday. Very much appreciate that, pal. Thank you so much. JL Cauvin, everybody. Always excellent. Thank you very much for your friendship, support, and this is a fun, interesting conversation.
Thank you. Pay for your porn, folks.
Dude's got a lot of integrity, I'll tell you that. There's not many people like him, really. He is a special, thoughtful, kind guy, and behind the scenes, he does a lot of nice things for people, and I love that guy, and I really enjoy our conversations, and I cannot thank him enough for his very kind, generous donation to GiveWell. GiveWell.org/standup is my partner for the month, and I was talking with JL about it, and while we were talking, he made a very generous donation. If he doesn't mind me saying, I'll say how much it was, but it was a lot of money, and I thought it was just awesome. And because he says he's had a great year, I was listening to his podcast, and he was talking about how he's had a very good year financially and how he has been making it rain on the charities, I think is how he said it. Check out his podcast, Righteous Prick, and Making Podcasts Great Again. He's got 2 podcasts, and you can find them wherever you find podcasts. JL Cauvin, Cauvin. Thank you very much, my friend. That was awesome. I really appreciate it. All right. Lots of awesome guests coming this week, as well as Thursday night. Boston Globe columnist Michael Cohen is set to join me for a Zoom hangout. I hope to see you there, and we will talk. We will connect, and we'll always be available on the Discord platform. If you are a paying subscriber, you get access to all of that as well. I'm so excited about what we're doing together here every day. And thank you so much for your support. But go tell your friends. Give us a rating wherever you listen to this podcast. 5 stars on the iTunes. That matters. And I'll talk to you right here tomorrow. You're never alone. I love you. Thank you. Take it away, John Carroll, and stand up.